All right, so this is Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into, so let's just kind of jump into it, man. This is a interesting question from Bam, who says, "Where would you rank Jacoby Brissett versus past Browns quarterback since 1999?" I would say he's behind the 2020 Baker Mayfield season because of record. He's also behind the 2014 Brian Hoyer season because of record too, because those were both teams that were several games over 500. The Browns are several games below 500. He might be third. This might be the third best quarterback season of all time for the Cleveland Browns since coming back in 1999. You take that for what it's worth, right? I think on the field wise, it's a better year than Baker's rookie year. As far as like decision making goes, because a lot of like Baker's rookie year was very up and down. This has been very consistent. So I think it's kind of a tie there. Some people are probably going to put Baker's rookie year over it because it had more spectacular plays. But, I think Jacoby's also had a similar amount. It's just that we're not looking at it with the same like optimism that we looked at with Baker, because obviously Jacoby's not a rookie. He's not the number one overall pick. But it's statistically, I mean, QBR wise, it's better, and in PFF grade wise, I think it's similar. But yeah, it's probably third. It's top five since '99. Again, take that for what it is worth, and I don't know how much it's worth. I don't think it's worth very much. But it is worth something there that, he's been able to do that. Now, who gets the credit for that? Is that going to be Kevin Stefanski? Is that going to be more Jacoby Brissett? That time will tell on that, right? Like next year will probably give us a determination on that. But as far as this year goes, well, it's definitely in the top five, I would say, of Browns quarterback seasons. Because even the year where they went to the playoffs with Tim Couch / Kelly Holcomb, that was a half and half situation where like Tim played half the year and then was pulled out and injured, and then Kelly came in. So it's not like it was like a great year for either of them. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Yeah, let me know in the comment section where y'all would put Jacoby Brissett's season this year. I want to know that. Next question comes from Gifted Last. It says, "Why do you think it's such a struggle for Kevin to put two running backs on the field at all the time? Like Chubb, Hunt, or Hunt and Dearness? It would scare the crap out of defenses. Who's going to get the ball?" Yeah, it just don't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. Because defenses aren't necessarily like trying to guess if the Browns are going left or right on a run. Like that's not the concern, right? Like if that were the concern, you don't need two running backs on the field. You just need to run more counter plays, or in play action boots and stuff like that. Misdirection would be more helpful than having two running backs on the field. That kind of stuff doesn't start to matter unless you have like 3, 4, or 5 options. Like 2 options, that doesn't really do anything, because it's not like the Mike linebacker before the ball gets snapped is like, has to be to the left, and he cheats over to the left. Like, he's going to make that determination once he sees where the ball goes. So having 2 running backs there, it doesn't really make sense. And the Browns do go to 22 personnel, 2 running backs on the field, often with 2 tight ends. But I think the numbers bear out they're more effective passing the ball out of 11, and they're more effective running the ball out of 13. There is no situation where the Browns benefit disproportionately to being in 22 personnel. They benefit well from 13 running the ball. They benefit well from 11 throwing the ball. But 22, it's a novelty, to be honest with y'all. I know a lot of people want to see it all the time, but it's a novelty, putting both those 2 on the field, because the effect that it has, it really only matters for very limited situations in a football game. And I don't think it's as useful as some people want it to be. It's more of a novelty. The Browns, if they need on 3rd and 3, they need to get 3 yards throwing the ball, empty 11 personnel, they work really great out of that. If the Browns need to run the ball and get 2 yards, they do it great out of 13. But there's not much where it's like a go-to no-brainer to get into 22 personnel. Like there's only like a handful of situations that's popped up this year where it's even made sense to consider it. The next question comes from Dr. Maggie, who says, draft question, another year, another great Ohio State prospect from the quarterback position, just like I did with Fields. I believe that CJ has more talent, should be the number 1 QB. Taking thoughts. I don't know who's the number 1 quarterback that's going to be taken this year, because I think they all have massive problems that can make you avoid taking them number 1 overall. When you look at Bryce Young, if all things were equal and Bryce Young were just a bigger guy, I would say from a pure evaluation standpoint, Bryce Young would be the number 1 quarterback in this draft, because he has all this stuff that you can't teach. His poise, his awareness of where everybody is on the field, the vision. And look, he doesn't have a great arm, but his vision makes up for it, right? We see that with guys like Deshaun Watson, guys like Joe Burrow. If you have elite vision and poise, and then you're athletic enough to be slippery, it really doesn't matter what the arm strength is, because you can overcome it. But he's just so small. And like, it's one thing to be sub 6 foot. I'm not really big on eliminating those guys, especially when they have demonstrated to have the pocket mechanics and the awareness and vision that Bryce Young has, right? So I don't think his issue is going to be able to find is if he's going to be able to find passing lanes. It's like, how healthy can he stay? Because he's very thin. And I know people are saying, hey, he'll just gain weight when he goes to the NFL. But he's been at Alabama for 3 years. And, like, I don't know if you guys watched Jalen Hurts when he was at Alabama for 3 years and how much he bulked up, and other guys who go to Alabama and bulk up over 3 years. Those guys, if they can bulk up, they're going to bulk up at Alabama. Right? This idea that he just hasn't had to bulk up, so he hasn't done it, that's ridiculous. At Alabama, if they can put extra weight on you, they will do it. But for whatever reason, he looks the exact same that he looked like his freshman year when it comes to body weight size. And that kind of tells me maybe he doesn't have the type of frame that you could just add muscle to and make him more sturdy. And just some dudes are just not that built like that, right? And I think that Bryce might not be built like that. That's what keeps me away from Bryce Young more than anything. CJ Stroud, I like CJ Stroud. And look, when CJ has a clean pocket, he's special. He has good eyes, good discipline, great arm strength, great accuracy. He reminds me a lot of Justin Herbert coming out of Oregon. If he goes to a decent situation that's going to put a decent offensive line around him, he'll be okay. If he goes to a situation that doesn't, and he's likely going to go there because he's in top 5, I don't know if he's able to overcome that. Because if you look at his games where he has looked subpar at Ohio State or has dropped games he shouldn't have at Ohio State, and there's not many of them. I think there's like one that I can remember off the top of my head. It's Michigan last year, and that was still a good team. They had like a number 2 overall pick on that team. So like, this is not a slight to CJ Stroud, but we are splitting hairs here when we're talking about the number 1 quarterback. He just struggles when that pocket gets a little muddy for him. And that's a common thread for those Urban Meyer system quarterbacks, right? Where they're coming out that system, they don't really get pressured that much. I worry about that with him, right? Like, he doesn't have the most crisp pocket mechanics. He doesn't look super comfortable. And I don't think he has the instincts from a pocket mechanic standpoint to just to get away with it early in his career to the point to where he can overcome it. So he needs to go somewhere specific. But if he goes to the right spot, he's going to go off, right? My thing with Bryce Young is I think Bryce Young could go anywhere and be good, but he can also go anywhere and be incredibly injured. And then there's guys like Will Levis and Hendon Hooker and maybe Anthony Richardson goes this year. Like, there's a lot of questions to be had for this quarterback class. But, you know, I'm interested to see what teams do at the top of it, because you can't. There's so much there with CJ and there's so much there with Bryce Young that you can't justify not doing it. But you can justify doing one over the other. It's just going to be very different for every team. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. He's definitely a better prospect than I felt like Justin Fields was coming out of Ohio State for the NFL. I felt like Justin was a very flawed prospect. Very talented, high upside, but flawed prospect coming out of Ohio State. Just not ready. I think CJ's about as ready as he's going to be, but I just have worries about where he lands. I think that really, really matters for a prospect like him. Some guys, they can go anywhere, be fine, because, like Deshaun Watson is a great example where, he went to one of the worst offensive lines of football, but he was fine because he's so slippery, he has those instincts, and he's a big dude, so it didn't matter how much he got hit. Joe Burrow, similar to that. Joe Burrow's a big dude. Like, he's 6'3", 230. So, when you have that size and that ability to avoid and find spaces and pockets and just maneuver, you can get away with a lot. Bryce has all of that, but he's so small. And I worry about that. I really do. It could end up being nothing, but I feel like it's going to be something. Pee Wee says, if you were Stefanski, how would you divide up QB1 reps starting Monday since Watson gets to practice? You're not. I don't know why people the ideal that Watson's going to start getting QB1 reps right now. I think that's a little bit wild. I think he's not going to get QB1 reps until the week for him to play. Before that, what he's really going to get to do is scout team. That's how he's going to get warmed back up, is scout team, right? There's no reason for him to take QB1 reps. It's not going to prepare him. Why would he need to take QB1 reps throwing game plan passes that he's not going to play in? It doesn't help him. It doesn't help the team. What he can do is be scout team quarterback. That's going to help the team a lot. And that's going to help him a lot, right? Because then he's going up against the number one defense. Then he's throwing more basic passing concepts that he's going to throw in the game. That's where you're going to use Deshaun Watson, is scout team. And that's where you're going to get him ready. And there's real value in that. He doesn't need to get quarterback 1 reps while he's not playing to get ready. I think that's been forgotten in this whole thing, is that, he has to get quarterback. The scout team reps and things like that, maybe the occasional QB3 reps, but those scout team reps, that's really going to be what helps him knock off the rust or anything, if you will. The next question comes from Nappy, who says, if Denzel gets another concussion, do you think he should retire, or do you think he should still struggle, or he'll still struggle when he's back? When it comes to that kind of stuff, I will leave my determination of that completely up to Denzel and the medical people that he trusts. Because when stuff like this happens in the NFL, when a player gets a concussion, or when we start to worry about CTE effects, we start to do this thing to where we act like we know better than the people who are in charge of the medical decisions and the players themselves. And I think that's not the greatest instinct. I understand the ideal to be protective, but we are not Denzel Ward's parents. It's not our role to do that. If Denzel and medical professionals that he trusts are saying that he's okay to get back out there, he's okay to get back out there. If they're suggesting he retires, then I'm fine with that too. If he gets another concussion soon, I hope we don't have to have this conversation, and he's able to play a clean game and able to get back healthy, because I don't wish head injuries on anybody. But, if that is the case, I would caution fans to say, hey, look, we got to respect whatever decision Denzel and the people that he trusts makes around him, because they're ultimately making that decision in the best interest of him. And it's important that we respect that instead of, play Twitter doctor and try to diagnose things ourselves. The next question comes from Alex, who says, if our defense plays above average for the rest of the season, do you think they'll let Woods mess up another half of the season next year? I don't know. I don't think he should come back, because this is the 3rd time we've been talking about this, but we'll see. It depends on how good they get and how far they go. Next question comes from ER Bus 1, who says, what is Cooper's ceiling with Watson as his QB? Will Chubb take a step back and have lower carries with Watson? He might have lower carries, but he's not going to take a step back. He's going to have, if he's not going to get to 25 carries a game like he is now, but that's fine, right? That's absolutely fine. If you can lessen the whole reason you trade for Deshaun Watson is to lessen the load on a Nick Chubb, right? So you don't have to rely on Nick Chubb to win games. You can win games in multiple different ways. And having Watson there, Nick Chubb might only get 15 carries in a game, but he probably might average a higher yard per carry in that, so he's probably going to get similar yardage. So I don't think it would be a step back. I don't think Nick Chubb's thinking, oh, I'm going to take a step back because I'm getting less carries because there's a better quarterback in the game. I think he's thinking about how much more open space he's going to see. So, I don't think Chubb's taking a step back when Watson comes back. I think it's probably the latter there. I think he probably takes a step forward. Trent with the question says, hey, Q, what are your overall thoughts on MJ Emerson's performance this year? The kid looks awesome to me. Yeah, he looks pretty good. He looks really, really good. Great pick by Andrew Berry, good physical corner. If this is how Andrew Berry has to draft going forward. And I have to give credit to Joe Woods, because if you look at the young corners that he has developed over his time here, Denzel has had his best year under Joe Woods. Greg Newsome, Joe Woods has developed him quite well. And then you look at Martin Emerson, you look at guys like A.J. Green. I think Greedy Williams has had a nice resurgence under him. M.J. Stewart last year. Joe Woods has done a good job with these corners when they're communicating and talking to each other. But I have to give credit there because MJ does look really good. And this is what the Browns need to do. They need to get, they got to get more guys like MJ with these third and fourth round picks, because that's how they're going to be able to reload. Darth Buckeye says, what's my favorite breakfast cereal and why? It's Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and I don't feel like that needs an explanation. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is clearly the best cereal. But that is it for this week's Q&A. You guys have a great day. Have a great night.